the judge, and the orphan. Maria was the embodiment of the city of Iquitos, a metropolis built not on bedrock, but on the principles of pure, unyielding law. As the youngest and most formidable Chief Justice in living memory, her reputation was carved from granite. She was rational, detached, and utterly impervious to sentiment. Her chambers, high above the bustling courts district, were sparsely decorated, containing only volumes of jurisprudence and a single, ancient clock whose steady ticking measured not time, but the relentless march of evidence toward judgment. There were no shades of gray, only black and white, fact and falsehood. This unwavering perspective made her efficient, respected, and, fundamentally, alone. Her current case was pedestrian, yet disturbing. It involved the theft of the chronometer of the first dawn, a small, historically invaluable timepiece belonging to Lord Silas, the city's wealthiest antiquarian and most generous philanthropist. The accused was a boy named Leo, an orphan of no more than 12, arrested near the docks with the artifact wrapped in a scrap of burlap. The evidence was irrefutable: possession, no credible alibi, and a history of petty scavenging. Leo stood before Maria's bench, a wisp of a child in oversized, frayed clothes. His eyes, the startling color of moss after rain, held a depth that belied his age, and a terror that transcended the fear of imprisonment. He offered no defense, only a low, persistent whisper. It was for the singing. Maria dismissed the claim instantly. The defendant's statements are immaterial. There is no proof of coercion or unsound mind. The law demands only facts. Lord Silas's property was stolen. It was found in your possession. Case closed. As Maria reached for her gavel, a tremor, faint but undeniable, passed through her. It wasn't seismic, it was sonic. A sound she couldn't place, like the ghost of a note played on a copper string, vibrating deep within the wood of her bench. The boy flinched, as if the unexpected kindness caused him physical pain. The chronometer, it sings of true time, not the time of clocks. They stopped its song. The clerk rolled his eyes. Lord Silas's lawyer sneered. Maria, however, felt a dull, growing heat beneath her collar. The echo intensified, making the air feel charged, like the moment before lightning strikes. Against all her rational training, Maria lowered her hand, her judgment unpronounced. The hearing is adjourned, she announced, her voice clipped. The evidence requires re-examination. The defendant will remain in custody. Maria retired to her chambers, unsettled. She dismissed her staff and stared at the heavy chronometer, which had been placed on her desk as evidence. It was an object of undeniable beauty, bronze, intricately filigreed, with gears visible beneath a glass dome. It should have been silent, yet Maria heard it, distinctly. The echo was no longer a single note, but a chaotic, rapid clatter, like 1,000 falling coins, the sound of greed. She cautiously placed her hand on the cold bronze casing. The moment her skin touched the artifact, the clattering stopped, replaced by a torrent of sound that flooded her mind: the roar of an auction house, the heavy slap of a ledger being closed, a man's low, triumphant chuckle, and beneath it all, the desperate, high-pitched sob of a woman. It was auditory memory, the psychic detritus of the object's past. Maria snatched her hand back, trembling. This was not reason. This was magic. Leo, the pathetic orphan, had somehow infected her sterile world with something volatile and illogical. His whispered nonsense about the singing was not madness. It was a form of truth she was only now prepared to receive. The orphan had, inadvertently, given the judge the ability to hear the echo of truth held within objects. The law required Maria to judge the boy by the evidence on paper. Leo stole a valuable artifact from Lord Silas's museum. But the echo told a different story. The chronometer was never truly Silas's. Its current worth was built upon an act of theft and anguish. Maria realized that her pursuit of justice could no longer be confined to the written page. To truly judge Leo, she had to judge the chronometer's journey. Maria donned her plainest robes, a disguise of anonymity, and took to the streets. Her investigation was no longer about witnesses and documents, but about touching the world. She went first to Lord Silas's museum. The place was sterile and gilded, a monument to wealth rather than history. She touched a velvet rope separating a prized sculpture. She heard a faint hiss, the sound of a lie being carefully guarded. She touched the empty pedestal where the chronometer had sat. The echo here was overwhelming, a deafening chorus of admiration and false praise from decades of visitors, drowning out any true history. Silas had made the chronometer a symbol of his own greatness, erasing its actual past. Next, she sought the truth of the orphan. Maria visited the district where Leo scavenged. Here, the objects were cheap, worn, and abundant. Touching a discarded copper kettle, she heard the sound of water boiling for tea, children laughing, the gentle hum of daily life, the echo of simple survival and abiding kindness. Maria returned to the chronometer. She touched it again, bracing herself. She forced the sound of greed to subside and sought the deeper, original echo. It took immense concentration, but finally, she heard it, a rhythmic, metallic thrumming, like a distant heart. This was the singing Leo mentioned, the chronometer's original, untainted purpose. It was a calibration tool, built centuries ago by a guild of clockmakers who valued precision over profit. Maria followed the thread of the sobbing woman's memory. By touching a small, loose screw on the chronometer's base, she heard a new, clearer series of memories, a small, dark workshop, the smell of oil, and the voice of a woman, Alara, the last master of the clockmakers' guild, weeping as a younger Silas, not yet a lord, forcefully took the timepiece, her only inheritance and source of income, as collateral for a predatory loan she could never repay. The timepiece was never collateral. It was outright stolen, its true ownership legally erased through clever paperwork. Maria now understood the entire equation. Leo had not stolen for profit, but for the singing. The orphan, living an instinctual life close to the bone, had perceived the artifact's internal sorrow, the silent agony of its wrongful ownership, and had attempted to liberate it from the man who had muted its song for self-aggrandizement. Maria realized the deeper irony. She, the judge dedicated to law, was presiding over a case where the written law was the very instrument of the initial, deeper injustice. The following day, the court was packed. Lord Silas sat in the front row, radiating confidence. The city waited for the judge's expected, swift condemnation of the young criminal. Maria stood, not sitting behind the bench, but standing before it, resting her hands on the cold wood. The echo she heard now was not greed or sorrow, but the thump of anticipation from the spectators, the simple hunger for entertainment and confirmation bias. She looked at Leo, who stood silent, resigned. This court has been asked to render judgment on the theft of the chronometer of the first dawn, Maria began, her voice resonating through the chamber. The facts on paper are clear. The defendant, Leo, was in possession of the property. Based solely on the statute, he is guilty. A collective nod swept through the court. Maria held up her hand. However, the purpose of this court is not merely to enforce the statute. It is to administer justice. Justice is not a ledger of rights and wrongs. It is a profound search for the truth that sits beneath the law. She walked slowly to the chronometer on the evidence table and laid her hand on it, letting the roar of the stolen history wash over her. This artifact sings, Maria declared, startling the assembly. It sings of its original owner, Alara, the clockmaster. It sings of the theft perpetrated 30 years ago by the petitioner, Silas, who used fraudulent contracts and legal loopholes to strip a woman of her heritage and the symbol of her craft, renaming the stolen object to fit his narrative of prestige. She then pointed to Leo. The defendant did not steal a museum piece. He performed an act of restoration. He heard the object's distress, the silence of its song, and he sought to return it to the common light, away from the shadow of the man who profited from its mute agony. Maria then delivered her verdict, a moment of legal alchemy that would be debated for decades. The court finds the defendant, Leo, guilty of the minor charge of unauthorized removal of property. Due to the circumstances of the case, the sentence is deemed time served. Maria did not stop there. She then turned her attention to the petitioner. The court also finds the petitioner, Lord Silas, in possession of fraudulently obtained goods. The chronometer of the first dawn is hereby declared not stolen, but liberated. It shall be returned to the descendants of Alara, the Clockmakers' Guild, as a foundational symbol of Ikida's commitment to reparative justice. The stunned silence was the purest sound Maria had ever heard. Maria looked at the orphan, Leo. Your sentence, Leo, is to remain in Ikida's, not as a prisoner, but as a protege. You have a gift for sensing the truth of things. You shall be a witness of the courts, tasked with reminding those of us trapped in paper and logic that the soul of the law lives in the things we cannot see or write down. She had traded her clock-like adherence to the letter of the law for the living, messy rhythm of true justice. The rigid geometry of Maria's life had been shattered by a child's simple, magical ability to hear the truth, and the Chief Justice discovered that her greatest power was not her intellect, but her capacity to listen to the whispers of the world. From that day forward, Maria learned that true justice requires two forms of sight: the cold, clear lens of the law, and the intuitive, empathetic ear that can hear the silent sorrow, the secret lie, and the echo of truth hidden in the heart of the matter. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe the channel and like the video. Thank you.